All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let's get started over here. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Kuf Chav Daled, 124. And we are picking up on 123b. A lot to do. Amarava, we are picking up, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines up from the bottom. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir, our week of learning sponsors, Steve and Terry Zinn, for dedicating all the shurim this week in memory of Steve's mother, Devorah Bas Yisrael, and with Akar Satov to the entire Kehillah for the outpouring of support for their family during their time of need. Aaron and Alana Weinberg, with gratitude to Hashem for Yonatan Shai Weinberg's complete refuah 9 years ago. Dr. Gabriel and Florence Gorel for dedicating all the shurim this week in commemoration of the yard site of Esther Schwimmer, Esther Bas Avi Ezri Zelig, the Gayson family, for dedicating the shiurim this week in memory of Dr. Alan Gayson, Elio ben Menachem Mendel HaKohen, in commemoration of his first yard site. We thank our DAF sponsors today. We thank Ira and Miriam Grossman, beautiful dedication of Mazel Tov, to Yosef and Shani Bizwadi on the birth of their daughter, and Baruch Hashem to myself and to Aviva, and to Shoshana Bizwadi on the birth of our first grandchild. Hashem, thank you. And thank you to Moshe and Devorah Wordesheim for dedicating the shir this morning in memory of Moshe's father, Mordechai ben Moshe. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah, the families in Nechama, and the merit Hashem will be zocheh to see our children and grandchildren grow in the ways of Derech Yaakov Saba Kadisha. And also with that, let us begin. So remember again, we are still in the incredible world of Muktzah. Incredible world of Muktzah. So we began yesterday, actually, interestingly enough, with a discussion regarding the evolution of the concept of Muktzah. So let's continue on that theme a little bit. So we're picking up 123b. A lot to do today. Amarava, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 11, 12 lines up from the bottom. Amarava, Hitiru Darsh Malaktu Leheter, Bein Tzarech Kufo, Bein Tzarech Mekamos. So I'll say, Rav, this is like this. Here's the way the halacha worked. Initially, they permitted a Darsh Malaktu Leheter. So I'll say, so again, we're going to define our terms once, and then Emir Hashem is going to carry us through the rest of the shir. A kli, Shemalachtu Leheter, is a utensil that has a totally permitted purpose on Shabbos. A fork. A fork is a perfect example, right? A fork, there's nothing prohibited about a fork, right? The primary function of a fork is absolutely permitted on Shabbos. Versus a kli shemalachto le'isser, which is a utensil whose primary purpose is prohibited on Shabbos. Paradigmatic example of that would be a hammer. A hammer has a usage which is primarily prohibited, i.e. building on Shabbos. But yet a hammer could also be used in a permissible way. How could it be used in a permissible way? To crack open nuts. We'll see 3 other terms. Tzorech gufo, which means using a kli shemalachto le'isser in a permitted fashion. Tzorech mikomo, moving the utensil, because you need the space that it occupies. And mechamal etzel, moving a utensil because if you leave it out, quote unquote, in the sun, it'll get damaged. So mechamal etzel means moving a utensil for the sake of preventing damage to the item. See, here we go. Amarava. Chazal allowed the movement of a kli shemalachto leheter, whether you need it to use the kli itself or you need the space that it occupies. And then they once again permitted you to move it even for the sake of saving it from damage. Then Chazal subsequently went ahead and permitted you to move a kli shemalachto le'isser for tzorech gufo, tzorech mekomo, but not mechamal etzel. Va'adayin ba'adam echad in b'shnei b'nei adam lo. But still, you can only move a utensil that can be moved by one person, not the utensil that requires 2 people. Ad sha'amru, until they said, kol hakelim nitalim b'Shabbos afilu b'shnei b'nei adam. Until they came along and said, no, you can really move all utensils, even halacha l'maisa, if it requires 2 people. Eis ve'abayis, how I raise the kasha, meducha, when it comes to a mortar, im yesh ba shum metaltalin osa, ve'im lav in metaltalin osa. We learned that the mortar, halacha l'maisa, if it has garlic in it, you can move it. If it doesn't have garlic in it, you can't move it. So we'll say, so again, so the mortar, remember again, is a kli shemelachto le'isr. A utensil's primary purpose is prohibited on Shabbos, and yet it seems like you can't move it under any circumstances. To which the Gemara says, no. What is that talking about? Mechama letzel. That's ultimately talking about moving it for the sake of preventing damage. Raise the kasha v'shavin shim katzala basu shasla taltalo. So we'll say they agree in the case of the pestle, that if you go ahead and once you've cut meat on it, you can't move it anymore. So that's talking about a case of moving the object, the klisham l'achtul to prevent monetary damage. Amr Rabbi Chanina. B'mei mechemia ben chachal yonishnis mishnah zura. Both say, since that tradition, Rabbi Chanina, by the way, when did the laws of muktzah come about? Because we'll say, obviously, muktzah is dirabanan. When did the laws of muktzah come about? They came about in the days of the prophet Nehemiah. Why? What happened during Nehemiah's time? Because Nehemiah writes, I saw in Yehuda that there was massive public chil Shabbos. People are desecrating Shabbos. They were going ahead and working in the presses and bringing in piles of wheat, which is really quite amazing. We'll say, so this is, and again, I just want to point out, these are days where there's a Navi. Like the Navi Nehemiah is here yet. Unfortunately, there was massive chil Shabbos. So therefore, again, Nehemiah felt compelled, the rabbi felt compelled to introduce the halachos of muktzah. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar, kanin umaklos glustra umeducha kulan kolden hataros kelim nishnu. The halachos concerning maklos, or we'll say maklos, we'll see are staffs. Kanin are tubes, maklos are staffs, glustra is a knob. Again, we'll discuss exactly what that means. And meducha is a press. Ultimately, and all of them were mentioned or were taught. Those halachos were taught before utensils were permitted. What does this mean? Here we go. We'll say. So the Gemara says, "Kanin." What's the case of tubes? Disnan lo sidur hakanin v'lo netilasan doches haShabbos. So we'll say this is actually very interesting. The tubes over here are part of the shulchan. We know that in the days of the was a shulchan, there was a table. On the table was arranged lechem apanim, the showbread. And I will say, in order that the loaves not sit on top of each other, they inserted these small hollow tubes in between the loaves, right in between the upper layer, bottom layer, so that the bread should not rest on each other. They did that for a couple of reasons. When the bread was warm, they didn't want any type of spoilage to occur. So they want, that's really what it is. They want to spoilage. So the halacha is, you cannot go ahead and insert or take out those tubes on Shabbos. The tubes are muktzah. Maklos, what's the case of staffs? This is not very interesting. Maklos dakin chalokin hayusham umanicho al ksefo v'al kesef chavero v'tola umafshit. What's this fascinating? Korban Pesach. You would check the Korban Pesach by the base of Mikdash, and then what would happen? You'd have to flay the animal. How would you flay the animal? This is incredible. I'd get another person from my chabura, right? Let's say Reuven and Shimon are having their Korban Pesach together. What would they do? They would have staffs. They would have like staffs in the base Hamikdash. So we'll say they would take two staffs, or one staff for that matter, right? Put one side of the staff on the shoulder of Reuven, and the other side of the staff on the shoulder of Shimon, and they would hang the animal in between them, and that's how they would flay the animal, holding the animal essentially from a staff suspended from their shoulders. So we'll say, yet the Gemara says that's what? The Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar, Arbasa Shechalios b'Shabbos, but if Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, Maniach yodo, top of kuf chav daled. Maniach yodo al kesef chavero, v'yad chaver al ksefo, v'tola umafshit. We'll say, but if Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, they would not use the staffs. Instead, what would they do? Reuven would put his hand on Shimon's shoulder. Shimon would put his hand on Reuven's shoulder, and what would happen? They would suspend the animal in between them like that. It's actually quite a beautiful metaphor, which you could accomplish. Right? True geula is only when you put your hand on my shoulder and I put my hand on your shoulder. Then halacha l'maisa, we could accomplish an incredible number of things. So the Gemara says as follows. So therefore, again, you see that the staffs were muktzah on Shabbos. Glustera. What's the case of the glustera? Disnan. Nagar sheyesh b'roshu glustera. We'll say if you have a bolt that has a knob on the front of it, or on the top of it. Yeshua Omer shomta min Pesach zu v'tola bechaver. You could take it from one door and put it. Also, this would be a door bolt. You could move it from one door to another door on Shabbos. Rabbi Tarfon Omer hari kechol hakelim umetaltel b'chotzer. It's like any other utensil. halacha lamaisa, and you could carry it inside of a chatzar. Meducha. What's the case of the meducha? Hada amar. That's what we mentioned before. That halacha lamaisa about once you've cut the meat on the meducha, you can't go ahead and move it anymore. Amarabba. Mimai. So how do you know these statements were mentioned after or before? Kalim were permitted. Mimai. Kalim nishnu. Maybe the reason, maybe these halachos. Suppose say what the Gemara is assuming is like this. It appears based on the Mishnah or based on the Gemara that the halachos of muktzah kind of went through an evolution. At first, everything was prohibited, which makes sense because again, if you understand the Gemara said in the times of Nehemiah, there was rampant chil Shabbos. So then essentially what there was is a dramatic reaction to that. Everything becomes muktzah. Then the lashon of the Gemara was hitiru, v'chazru v'hitiru, v'chazru v'hitiru. Chazal then kept on going ahead and permitting more and more and more things till you get to our Mishnah. Till you get to our Mishnah, right? Till you get to our Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says pretty much nothing is muktzah except for a large saw and ultimately the blade of a plow. So there's that incredible evolution that's taking place. The Gemara is therefore suggesting that halacha l'maisa, these statements regarding the staffs, right, the maklos, the tubes, the staffs, and the mortar, the knob and the mortar, they were all mentioned when we say that they're asran Shabbos. That was all stated before Chazal permitted utensils on Shabbos, or the use of all utensils on Shabbos. Which the Gemara says, how do you know that? Maybe these items remain muktzah even after Chazal relaxed the laws of muktzah. Why is that? Kanim taimamai. But say, why is it that ultimately, again, for example, even after Chazal relaxed the laws of muktzah, they still would not allow you to use the tubes for the lechem aponim? Mishum ifushe bahai porta lo me'afish. Because at the end of the day, the little bit of spoilage that occurs by not putting in the tubes in between the loaves. Now, I was supposed to remember the loaves are placed on Shabbos. So the little bit of spoilage that may occur by allowing the loaves to sit one on top of the other for the duration of Shabbos, it's not a big deal. Maklas, after Krebelazar, I wouldn't have, again, even when Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, we won't allow the use of the staffs. Why? Because the Krebelazar said there's another way. We can suspend it from our arm. Glustera kid Rabbi Yanai. The case of the knot could be like Rabbi Yanai, Dam Rabbi Yanai, Bechata Shina Me'urevas Askina. Rabbi Yanai is talking about a chat that doesn't have an eruv. Rabbi Yeshua Savar, Tocha Pesach Kilif Nimdami. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, there's a different issue. He holds that within the doorway is considered to be like inside the house. They come a taltal moned debatim b'chatzar, and therefore you end up carrying something from the home into the chatzar. Rabbi Tarfon Savar, Socha Pesach Kila Chutz Dami. Rabbi Tarfon holds that the outer doorway, ultimately, where the outside of the doorway is considered to be the chatzar. Umana de chatzar b'chatzar kamataltal, and Allah chalamais, you're carrying a utensil of the chatzar inside the chatzar. Meducha, and what's the case of meducha? Rabbi Nehemiah. Remember again, it could be the case of meducha as Rabbi Nehemiah. Rabbi Nehemiah is the opinion that says a kli can only be carried ultimately again for its intended purpose on Shabbos. So we'll say, so again, so here's what we come out of this with. What we know is that halacha l'maisa, the laws of muktzah went through the evolution, as we discussed, from exceptionally strict and limited to much more permissive. The shaila is going to be how permissive. So let's see the next. Before I tell you the halacha l'maisa, let's take a look at the next Mishnah. Kala kelim nitalun tzarach shelo tzarach. We'll say all utensils can go ahead and be carried on Shabbos, both for their intended purpose as well as not for their intended purpose. We'll see what that means also. Or I shouldn't say that. I should say they can be carried for a purpose and not for a purpose. Rabbi Nehemiah Omer Eini Talan Elatar. So we'll say this is the famous position of Rabbi Nehemiah that we've quoted already a million times, but here's actually the Mishnah where it's quoted. Rabbi Nehemiah says, the halacha of muktzah says that you cannot move a utensil on Shabbos unless you are going to use it for its primary designated purpose. So I'll say, so just to illustrate this, Rabbi Nehemiah would say like this: if I'm learning a sefer and I need a bookmark, but I don't have a bookmark, so there's a knife in the kitchen. I'm going to take a knife from the kitchen, put it in my sefer. Rabbi Nehemiah would say you can't do that. You can't do that because a knife, well, let's assume for a moment that's what he means. A utensil can only be moved for its intended purpose on Shabbos. So let's analyze. So we'll say first wide line. What does it mean to be moved for its purpose and not for its purpose? Amar Abba, L'tzorech davar shemalachto leheter l'tzorech gufo. Shlo tzorech davar shemalachto say. So Rabbi says, what it means is like this. It's referring to a kli shemalachto leheter, which is a utensil that has a permitted purpose on Shabbos. So the tzorech, it can be moved for tzorech means gufo, because you want to use the utensil itself. Shlo l'tzorech, what does shlo l'tzorech mean? What does that refer to? Davar shemalachto leheter l'tzorech mikomo. So what's according to Rabbi, Mishnah is teaching me that if you have a kli shemalachto leheter, that can be moved l'tzorech gufo or makomo. Whether you want to use the utensil itself or you need the space that it occupies. Nechemi comes along and says, no. Afilu davar shemalachto leheter l'tzorech gufo in, l'tzorech mikomo lo. And Rabbi Nechemi comes along and says, you can move a kli shemalachto leheter, but only to use it in a permitted fashion. You cannot move it because you want to use the space that it occupies. Amalei Rava says that doesn't make sense. L'tzorech mikomo shelo l'tzorech karisle. Rabbi say, if you need the space that a utensil occupies, is that called movement not for the purpose of the utensil? Amar Rava, rather the Rava says like this. L'tzorech, what does it mean l'tzorech for its purpose? That's davar shemalachto leheter bein l'tzorech gufo, bein l'tzorech mikomo, shelo l'tzorech afilu mechama l'tzel. Rather, Rava says, and this is a very important. Rava says, what is Mishnah coming to teach me? That when it comes to a kli shemalachto leheter, which is a utensil that has a totally permitted use on Shabbos, you can move it. L'tzorech gufo, because you want to use it. L'tzorech mekomo, because you need the space that it occupies. And mechama l'tzel. You move it because you don't want it to get damaged or destroyed. However, v'davar shemalachto le'isser, but if you have a kli shemalachto le'isser, which is a utensil whose primary usage is prohibited on Shabbos, l'tzorech gufo, l'tzorech mekomo in, you can move it. You can move that utensil if you want to use it in a permitted fashion, or if you need the space that it occupies. However, mechama l'tzel lo. But you cannot move it, a kli shemalachto le'isser, if you want to save it from damage. Nechemi comes along and says, Afilu davar shemalachto leheter, l'tzorech gufo, l'tzorech mekomo in, mechama l'tzel lo. Nechemi comes along and says, no, even a kli shemalachto leheter, you can move it l'tzorech gufo, because you want to use it. You can move it l'tzorech mekomo because you needed space, but you cannot go ahead and move it for the sake of saving it from damage. Yosef Rav Safa Rav Acha bar Avuna bar Avuna bar Chanina the Yosef v'Ka'amri. So they sat along. They were sitting, and they were saying the following. They were sitting and saying the following. So also we have a fundamental machlokes, Rabba and Rava. So says the Gemara. Says V'Kamri l'Rabba alibid Rabbi Nechemia. So according to Rabba's interpretation of Rabbi Nechemia, Hani ka'aros heichin metaltalinan. But so when you finish a meal, and there's plates on the table, how do you move the plates off the table? To which the Gemara says, Amalu Rav Safra, midi dehaveh graf shalrei. No, because even according to Rabbi Nechemia, even according to Rabba's interpretation, Rabbi Nechemia, dirty dishes on the table would be like graf shalrei, it'd be like a bedpan. And just like you can move graf shalrei on Shabbos, you can move dirty dishes on Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, Amalu Abaye the Rabba, lemar alibid Rabbi Nechemia. So Abaye said to Rabba, but according to you, and according to your interpretation of Rabbi Nechemia, how do you move dirty dishes off the table? Amrlei Rav Safra Chavrin Tirgama Midi Dehavi Agraf Sharei. Because we'll say according to Rabbi Nechemia, see even according to Rabbi Nechemia, and again this is in Rabba's interpretation of Rabbi Nechemia, that halacha l'maisa, you can't move a kli shemalachto leheter tzorech mekomo. How do you go ahead and move dirty dish? According to Rabbi Nechemia, graf shalrei. Eis ve'abaye l'Rava. So Abaye is kasha to Rava. Meducha im yesh pashum metaltlinoso ve'im lave metaltlinoso. If you have a mortar, as I was saying, inside that mortar, ultimately there's garlic, then you can move it because the garlic is permitted. So therefore, you can move the mortar. But if there's no garlic there, you can't move the mortar. So we'll say, so that would seem to indicate that a kli shemalachto le'isser cannot really be moved under any circumstances. No, what is that talking about? That's not where you want to move the mortar in order to save it from damage. Halacha l'maisa, everyone will agree that you can't do that. Everyone agrees that if you cut meat on top of the mortar, once you went ahead and you cut the meat, you can't move it anymore. It's also talking about a case where you want to move the mortar, which is a klisha malachto le'isr, mechamel etzel. From literally, again, by the way, mechamel etzel means from the sun to the shade, meaning you want to move it in order to avoid damage. Ivahadisnan ain't som chenas hakadera bebikas v'chein bedelas, but yet we learned elsewhere that you can't go ahead and support the pot on a piece of wood or on a door. Ivahad to be yomtov davar shemalachto leheter, but why not? What's talking about by yomtiv? But the piece of wood by yomtiv is a klisha malachto leheter. Why? Because on yomtiv you're permitted to go ahead and kindle a fire. Alma davar shemalachto leheter. What do you see from here? That even a klisha malachto leheter can't be used or go for makomo. Hasam my time. What's the reason there? Kevan de b'Shabbos davar shemalachto leisrahu gezera yomtiv atu Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Really, it should be mutter, but a lot of times we assert things on yomtiv in order to safeguard Shabbos. So therefore, the Gemara says we're not going to let you use the piece of wood to support the pot on Yom Tiv, even though on Yom Tiv the piece of wood is not muktzah, lest you come to go ahead and use the piece of wood on Shabbos when the wood would be muktzah. 1 second. V'chi tema Shabbos gufei tishtri the hadavar shamalachto leisotzar gufo tzarach makom shari. So this is 1 second. But even by Shabbos you should be able to move the piece of wood if you need the piece of wood tzarach gufo umakomo. And again, using the piece of wood to support the pot would be a fantastic example of a permitted use for a piece of wood on Shabbos, and therefore should be permitted. To which the Gemara says, the dispensation to use a klisha malachto le'isr, l'tzorech gufo umakomo on Shabbos is only when the item in question has the identity of a kli. This piece of wood does not have the identity of a kli, and therefore again does not have the dispensations of Sorach Gufo Makomo. Migaz Yunan. Let's go back for a second. All we go to say, do we prohibit things on Yom Tiv, lest you come to perform them on Shabbos? V'hatnan we learned, Mashilin Peres Derech Haruba B'Yom Tiv. You can go ahead and literally lower down fruit through the skylight. I'm supposed to just give you the case over here. They had flat roofs in the times of the Gemara, and those roofs were often used to spread out, they were used for laundry and other things, but also to spread out fruit. I want to dry fruit. You would spread it out on your rooftop. Well, let's say I have fruit drying out on my rooftop, and now it's Yom Tiv, and I see that halacha lemaisa, it's going to rain. So what can I do? I could push the fruit. Now, technically speaking, fruit which were spread out to dry, really become muktzah, right? Why? Because the drying out process takes a little while. So when you spread that out on your roof, essentially what you're saying is, I'm not using this fruit. So in this case over here, what I can do on Yom Tov is I can push it through the skylight, and it falls to the ground of my house, thereby saving it from being ruined by the rainfall. The reason I'm allowed to do this is because there's really very little effort expended in just pushing it through the skylight, right? It's not like I'm gathering it up, taking it downstairs. I'm just pushing it through the skylight, and it falls through the roof. And ultimately, again, that is permitted. So the Gemara says, Mashil Peres Derech Yom Tov about lo b'Shabbos. So I'll say, here you see something that's permitted on Yom Tov and not permitted on Shabbos. But 1 second, you just told me before that we will answer things on Yom Tov lest you come to do it on Shabbos. Yet we see over here the practice is permitted on Yom Tov, even though it's asr on Shabbos. The Gemara says, Umilo Gazrinon. Do you think that in general we're not? Goes Rav Hatanan in Ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos ala ochel nefesh bilvad. Yet in general we learn that Yom Tov is the same as Shabbos in almost all respects, except for ochel nefesh. Right? On Yom Tov you're allowed to prepare food. Amar Rav Yosef lo kasha, har Rabbi Eliezer, har Rabbi Yoshua. Two different opinions. The Sanyo, one is Rabbi Eliezer, one is Rabbi Yoshua. The Sanyo, osovies beno. So we'll say, take a look at Rashi in just a moment. Lo kasha. Disnan mashilin the shari tircha b'yamtiv mishum ibud mammon Rabbi Yoshua. So we'll say we're going to see the opinion who allows you to push the fruit through the skylight on Yom Tiv is the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua, because he's going to allow additional exertion on Yom Tov in order to save yourself from financial loss. Take a look at the Gemara. We actually had this. Disanyo, Osovias Shnaf Labar. Also, let's say you have a mother and its child, animals, 2 cows, mother and child that fall into a pit. I will say, remember again, you want to get them out of the pit. The problem is, you're really only allowed to get the animal out of the pit if what? If you want to eat it on Yom Tov. You want to shecht it on Yom Tov. The problem is you can't shecht both of them. Why? Because you're not allowed to shecht the mother and child on the same day. So how do I deal with this? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Ma'ales Harishon Amanas Shokto B'Shokto V'Hasheni Oselo Parnasa Bimkomo B'Shoshlo Yamos. Rabbi Eliezer says you could pull out one animal with the intention to shecht it, then you could shecht that animal, and just you have to sustain the other animal in the pit until the end of Yom Tov. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Ma'ales Harishon Amanas Shokto Ve'Eno Shokto Umarim Umalas Hasheni Ratza Zeh Shochet Ratza Zeh Shochet. And Rabbi Yeshua says, what can you do? You can pull out the first animal with the intention to shecht it, and then after you get it out, what do you say? Nah, I don't want this one. You change your mind, and then you pull out the second one because I say no, I want to eat the second one. You pull it out, and I will say once you have both animals out, you can decide which animal you want to shecht and consume. So we'll say, so you see that Rabbi Yeshua allows the use of harama, a little bit of creating a fictional narrative in order to save yourself from financial loss on Yom Tov. So the Gemara says, so therefore we'll say we would assume that Rabbi Yeshua is the same opinion who says that when it begins to rain, you could push the drying fruit through the skylight in order to save yourself from some loss. To which the Gemara says, not necessarily. Rabbi Eliezer only says you can't take both animals out of the pit, because once you get one animal out, the other one could be sustained in the pit. In other words, you could avoid loss by sustaining the other animal in the pit. Low. But we'll say if halacha l'mais in the case of the fruit on the rooftop, maybe even Rabbi Eliezer will agree that if the rain is going to destroy it and ruin it, you can push it through the skylight. To which the Gemara says, furthermore, even Rabbi Yeshua, maybe Yeshua only allows you in the case of the cows because you could do harama. We'll say, right? You could create a little bit of like your own narrative in this. I was going to eat this one, then I was going to eat that one. But where there's no ability for harama, where there's no ability for a little bit of a contrived narrative, maybe Rabbi Eliezer would not. Maybe Rabbi Yeshua would not allow you. So, for example, maybe Rabbi Yeshua would hold that in the case of the skylight and the fruit, you can't push the skylight. You can't push the fruit to the skylight. Ela amra papa lo kashya habe shamai habe sila. Two different opinions. We'll say one is Beishamai, one is Beisila. This one, here we go. Beishamai Omrim, Amad Beis. We'll say Beishamai Omrim, Ein Motzi Nesakatan Vesalul of Vesefer Torabim. So Beishamai in general holds. I will say on Yom Tiv, you're really only allowed to carry, to do Hotzah for the sake of Ochel Nefesh. Right? That the dispensation to carry on Yom Tiv is really only things related to food items. However, you can't carry a child, you can't carry a lulav, you can't carry a sefer Torah into Rosh Hashanah. Beis Hillel matirin, and Beis Hillel says it is permitted. So I just want to point out over here, this happens to be subject of a different machlokes of the concept of mitoch. Beis Hillel holds that once carrying is permitted for the sake of ochel nefesh, it becomes permitted for even non-ochel nefesh purposes as well. It has to be a Yom Tov need, but even for non-ochel nefesh purposes, you can carry the item on Yom Tov. So the Gemara says, Emer Deshama say the Beis Shammai Hotzah. So when does Beis Shammai ultimately allow for something? That's with carrying. I should say that's Hotzah. I should say transferring an item from one Rosh to another. Tiltul Mishamaslu. But how do you know that he's referring? How do you know that he would be permissive with movement as well? To which the Gemara says, 1 second, but Tiltul Gufei Lav Mishum Hotzahi. Remember again, the whole concept of Tiltul is only Asr because it leads to Hotzah. The Af Rav Savar Law. Laha de Rava, even Rav holds like what Rava said before. Da'am Rav, Mar Shelo Yiganev. One could go ahead and literally move away or hide away a hoe in order that it should not be stolen. Right? So a person has a shovel, so you could put it away so it won't be stolen on Yom Tov. Zeu Tiltul Shelo L'Tzorech. This is an example of movement, not for the sake of the item. Va'aser, and ultimately it is aser. Taimo Shelo Yiganev. So we'll say, what is that an example of? That's movement of muktzah mechama letzel. That would be an example of movement of muktzah, literally again from the sun to the shade, in order to save it from theft. And you see that it's aser. So the Gemara says, "Taimu shel yiganev, aval tzorach gufa tzorach mekomo mutter." But it appears, so we'll say you see from here that for a klisha malachto leisser, so ultimately again you cannot move it mechama letzel, but you can infer from it that you can move it tzorach gufo or tzorach mekomo. Is that so? V'ha Rav Kahana ikla lebei Rav. So yet Rav Kahana went to the house of Rav. V'amar, and Rav said, "Aisulei shusa lekahana le save ale." Go bring a shusa. Shusa was actually mitzuda, a trap. Go bring a trap for kahana to sit on. I'm going to say now, if you could imagine for a moment, like the trap is like a box. So what Rav was saying, was bring a trap, right? And Rav Kana is going to use it as a seat to sit on. So the Gemara says, first white line, lav lememra the davar shel lachto le'tzorach gufo in le'tzorach mekomo lo. So I could infer from that. Now remember, a trap is a klishim lachto le'iser, because trapping is one of the lamates malachos. So I could infer from that then what? That a davar shel a klishim lachto le'iser can be moved le'tzorach gufo, but not le'tzorach mekomo. To which the Gemara says, no. Hachi amarlo. This is what it means. Shakulu shusa mikame kahana. No. What Rav actually said was, move that trap so that Rav Kahana could sit where the trap is situated. So ultimately, again, Rav was giving instructions to move the trap, l'tzorech makomo, because he needed the space which the trap was sitting on. Ultimately, again, that was the case where they wanted to move the trap in order to save it from damage. And Rav was saying, you can't save it, you can't move it to save it from damage, but we can move it if we need the space that it occupies. Rav Mori bar Rochel, have lehahu be sadiusa, b'shimsha. So we'll listen to this. Rav Mori bar Rochel had, we'll say, sadiusa, be sadiusa means pillows made of felt. Felt pillows that were sitting in the sun. And if they would remain in the sun, they would be damaged. So what did he do? Asla kamei de Rava. So he comes before Rava. Amalei malatal talinu. Can I move them? So we're saying this is a case of pillows. Now remember again, what's a pillow? A pillow is a kli shemalach leheter, totally permitted on Shabbos. So Rav Mari's coming along and asking, but can I move the pillow mechama letzel? Can I move the pillow out of the sun in order to save it from damage on Shabbos? Amalei shari. To which ultimately again, to which Rabbah says it's permitted. Isli achrina. But Rav Mari said, I do have other pillows, so it's not like I need these pillows. So I do have other pillows. Is it still permitted? So the Gemara says, Chazul arch, and Rav said yes, because what if guests show up? If guests show up again, so you have pillows for your guests. Isli nami l'arch, to which Rav Mari said, I do have extra pillows even for guests. I have enough for guests. So we'll say at this point, Rav said, listen, are they? So Rava said, it's apparent to me that ultimately, again, you hold like Rava, excuse me. So we'll say, so Rava essentially said to Ramar, listen, I'm giving you a psak halacha. If you're going ahead and you keep on arguing with me, obviously you hold like someone else. So fine, so here's what I'm going to tell you. Everyone else in the world would be permitted to go ahead and bring in their pillows from the sun, except you. You can't, right? You can't. And I will say now, he wasn't being angry with what he was saying. What he was saying to Rav Mari is, obviously you're hesitant to do this because you hold like a different halachic opinion, which is fine. So subscribe to the opinion which you hold like, and therefore for you, you will not even move a klishu malachtu leheter afilu nechama letzel. To which the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Chibar Ashi, Amar Rav. Machbados shel nosa mutal tatan b'shabbos. So literally, this means cloth brooms, which means if you can imagine, it's a broom that on the like the bristles are made of cloth. Now we'll say this was not made for sweeping floors. Rashi points out this was made for sweeping tables. So such a broom is not muktzah on Shabbos. Mutal tatan b'shabbos. Aval shel tamra. But if you have a broom made of palm branches, which Rabbi says what a regular broom was made of. Lo, we'll say that is muktzah. And remember again, a regular broom, we saw this before, is made for sweeping floors. Sweeping floors in the times of the Gemara is asr on Shabbos. Why? Because floors were made of dirt. The act of sweeping levels out the floor, and leveling out a dirt floor on Shabbos is a problem of bonus, a problem of building. So halacha l'maisa again, Rabbi Chibar Ashi is saying the cloth brooms to clean off the table, totally fine. The palm brooms, which are used for sweeping floors, aser. The Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer Afshal Tamra. Rabbi says, even the palm brooms are going to be permitted. To which the Gemara says, what does that mean? So the Gemara says, Afshal Tamra, my asking on, if you want to say that you can use the palm broom in a permitted fashion, or because you need the space that it occupies, Baha Lima Rav Shal Tamra Lo. Would Rav disagree with that? But ultimately what it means is to save the broom from damage. Baha Lima Rabbi Eliezer, Baha Lema Rabbi Elazar, Af Shel Tamra. Regarding this, Rabbi Elazar said, even a palm broom. To which the Gemara says, you're right, the Olam Mecham Alatzel. In reality, we're dealing with moving the palm broom, ultimately again from the shade or from the sun to the shade. V'chein Amar Rabbi Elazar. Suppose you look at Rashi just a moment. V'chein Amar Rabbi Elazar. Shal milsa mutar v'shal tamra asa mecham alatzel. But I will say same idea. That halacha l'maisa when it comes to cham alatzel. So as much as the palm broom can be moved l'tzorach gufa l'tzorach makomo, it cannot be moved mecham alatzel. Right? It cannot go ahead and be moved in order to save it from damage. So we'll say, so let me just give you kind of like the brief synopsis on Hilchos Moktzah. We're not finished yet, but just to frame this sugya. So remember again, the Gemara essentially introduces us to two distinct categories. Klisha malachto le'isr, klisha malachto le'heter. Let's reverse that. Klisha malachto le'heter, klisha malachto le'isr. So we'll say, klisha malachto le'heter is a utensil that has a totally permitted use on Shabbos. Totally permitted use. What's the halacha by klisha malachto le'heter? So the way we pass kan halacha l'maisa, you can move it l'tzorech gufo, to use the utensil. You can move it l'tzorech makomo, because you need the space that it occupies. And you can move it mecham alatzel. You can move it literally again from the sun to the shade. So we'll say, so essentially, in order to save the item from damage or from loss. So halacha l'maisa klisha malachto leheter could essentially be moved under all circumstances. What about a klisha malachto le'isr, which is a utensil whose primary use is prohibited on Shabbos, but also has secondary permitted uses? The hammer, right? The hammer's primary use is asr, building. Secondary use as a nutcracker, totally fine. What's the halacha? So we'll say klisha malachto le'isr. You can move it l'tzorech gufo, to use in a permitted fashion. You can move it l'tzorech makomo, if you need the space that it occupies. You cannot move it mecham alatzel. You cannot move it on Shabbos to save it from loss. So for example, if you left your hammer out and it's raining, and because it's raining, the hammer is going to rust, you cannot go ahead and move the hammer for the sake of saving it from damage on Shabbos. You can move the hammer if you need it, right, in a permitted fashion. If it's sitting on your table and you need that space, you can move the hammer out of the way, but you cannot move it mecham alatzel. Good. That's the basic halachic framework. Says the Mishnah. We're not finished yet. What's the interesting halacha? Any utensil that can be moved on Shabbos, if the utensil breaks, its shards or its pieces can be moved as well on Shabbos. As long as the shards are usable for malacha. We'll define the parameters of that as well. Shivrei areva, for example, if you have a mixing bowl and the mixing bowl broke, as long as the shard is large enough to cover a barrel, right, to cover a receptacle, then the shard won't be muktzah. Shivrei schulgus, if you have a glass utensil and the glass utensil broke, again, as long as the glass shard, can be used to cover up a receptacle. So interestingly enough, the Tanakama holds that if a utensil goes ahead and breaks, the pieces will not be muktzah, the pieces will still be permitted, provided that the pieces are usable for something. As long as the pieces are usable for something, then halacha l'maisa, you can go ahead and use it on Shabbos. Comes along Rabbi Yehuda, Shabbos Rabbi Yehuda says, no. It's not just enough that the shards are usable. The shard has to be usable in the same capacity as it was when it was part of a whole utensil. For example, so the Gemara says, Shivrei if you have a mixing bowl that broke, so latzuk l'socha mikveh. The shard has to be large enough that you could pour porridge into it. In other words, the same way that a mixing bowl is a receptacle for an item, so the shard has to be large enough to receive an item into it as well. V'shal zchuchis, and similarly again, if you have a glass jug and it breaks, the glass shard has to be large enough, latzuk l'sochan shemen, large enough to pour oil into it. So we'll say, so fundamental machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama about if you have a utensil and the utensil breaks, are the shards muktzah? The Tanakama says as long as the shards are large enough to be used for something, even if the something does not resemble their original usage, the shard is not muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda is saying no. In order for the shard to not be muktzah, it has to be usable in the same capacity that it was when the utensil was whole. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Machlokes Shenshu Be'erev Shabbos. The machlokes comes up when the utensil broke on Erev Shabbos. The Mar Savra Me'ein Malacha in Me'ein Malacha Acheres Lo. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that the shard has to be usable in the same capacity it was when the utensil was whole. And the Tanakama says, no, as long as it's usable in some way, it's permitted. The Gemara says, but if the utensil broke on Shabbos, divrei hakol mutarin. Everyone agrees that the shards will be permitted. Hoyel umuchanin al gabi abihin. I will say, if the utensil breaks on Shabbos, everyone will agree that as long as the shard is usable in some way, that halacha l'maisa, the shard will not be muktzah. No, Mosi Reb Zutrai says, 1 second. We learn Masikim Mikelim and Masikim Shivrei Kelim. The Raisa says that on Yom Tov Rabbi will say you could fuel the fire with utensils, right? You could use utensils as fuel, but you cannot use broken utensils as fuel. To which the Gemara says, Denishbaru Emas, in this situation, when did the utensils break? Ilema Denishbaru Me'erev Yom Tiv, if we want to say they broke on Erev Yom Tiv, Eitzim Ba'almaninu. We'll say if the utensil broke on Erev Yom Tiv, then by definition it's firewood, it's nothing. Elalav bi Yom Tiv, rather it must say that the utensil broke on Yom Tiv itself. Vikatoni Masikin B'Kelim, Ve Masikin B'Shivrei Kelim. And yet we learn that what? That Allah Kalamaisi, you could go ahead and use full utensils, but you can't use shards of utensils. So I will say, it appears from here that if a utensil breaks on Shabbos, or a Yom Tov for that matter, it becomes totally muktzah. Rather, here's how the machlokes is. I'm Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel. Machlokes shenishbaru b'Shabbos. The machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda is when the kli broke on Shabbos. What's the machlokes? The mar savar muchanu. The Tanakama will say the utensil is prepared for use. And once it's prepared for use at the onset of Shabbos, it remains prepared for use, even if what? Even if the utensil breaks on Shabbos itself. Umar Savar, no latu. The other opinion, i.e. Rabbi Yehuda, will hold that a broken utensil is no lat. It's something new that has occurred over here, and therefore it will be muktzah. Avame Erev Shabbos, but everyone agrees that if the utensil breaks on Erev Shabbos, divrei akol mutarin, everyone will agree that the utensil is mutar. Why? Since halacha l'maisa, it was prepared for its malacha ultimately again while it was still day. Tani chada. So let's analyze this a bit more. So Tani chada, masigim b'kelim and masigim b'shivrei kelim. So we have one brisa that says that you can go ahead and kindle a fire on Yom Tiv with utensils, but not with broken utensils. But Tanya idach. Another opinion says kashem shemasigim b'kelim. Another opinion says that the same way that you can kindle a fire with utensils, you could also kindle with broken utensils. A third brisa says, another opinion says you can't use full utensils or you can use broken utensils. So what's going on? Which the Gemara says it's not a machlokes. Harabi Huda, Harabi Shimon, Harabi Nechemia. I will say 3 different opinions. Look at Rashi, almost right across. Harabi Huda, Masikim Kelim, Masikim Shivra Kelim. So let's listen to this. So first opinion that says that you can go ahead and use full utensils but not broken utensils is Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that a broken utensil is nolad, something new which has been created, and therefore you cannot use it on Yom Tiv. The second opinion that says that you could go ahead and kindle a fire both with whole utensils and broken utensils, that's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi say in general holds. Rabbi Shimon holds that there's no issue of nolad, and therefore the same way that essentially the broken utensils are considered to be an extension of the whole utensils, and therefore everything is permitted for use on Shabbos. And the last opinion that says that you can't even use whole utensils to kindle a fire on Shabbos, that's Rabbi Nechemia. What does Rabbi Nechemia say? That's Rabbi Nechemia from the Mishnah, that you cannot go ahead and move a utensil on Shabbos, or on Yom Tov for that matter, except for its intended purpose. So halacha l'maaseh, any usage of it for its not intended purpose is going to be best. So we'll say, therefore, 3 different opinions: Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Nechemia. We'll stop over here for today, and let Mirat Hashem pick up with the next sugya of Rav Nachman and Mirat Hashem tomorrow. We'll say Yeshekayach. Again, we'll be streaming the minyan from the shul parking lot at 7 o'clock. Great to with all of you. Another beautiful daf. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.